My name is Morgan Williams, and never in my 34 years did I imagine I'd be standing on a sidewalk outside a grand hall, ignored, on the night of my mother's 60th celebration. Dressed in my favorite navy dress, gift box clutched tightly, I waited at the entrance where my father blocked the doorway like a hired bouncer. "You're not on the guest list," he stated without blinking, as if I were a total stranger attempting to sneak into a private affair. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of my older sister Brooke, her smirk unmistakable, triumphant. The expression she wore wasn't surprise or discomfort. It was satisfaction. You might wonder how a daughter becomes the outsider in her own family. Let me take you back. Childhood in the suburbs of Chicago wasn't exactly picturesque for a middle child like me. Sandwiched between Brooke, the academic wonder child, and Tyler, the adored baby boy, I spent most of my formative years being invisible. Family albums tell the tale. Brooke posing with medals, Tyler being embraced, and me, usually off to the side, occasionally blurry, sometimes cut off entirely. But Mom, she was different. Or so I believed. I was 7 when I first understood what being left out felt like. Melissa Anderson's birthday party. No invite. While Dad dismissed it with a shrug and, "You'll survive," Mom surprised me. She made paper hats, baked cupcakes, and we had our own little party in the living room. "You're unique, Morgan," she told me as we danced to the radio. Never forget that. At 12, I entered the science fair with my solar system model and earned 3rd place. Brooke had taken first, of course. But Mom, she proudly framed my certificate, told me that effort mattered more than placement. She hung it beneath Brooke's wall of trophies until Dad decided it messed with the visual balance and took it down. She quietly slipped it into her bedside drawer instead. On my 16th birthday, when all my friends bailed for someone else's bigger bash, Mom drove me 2 hours into the city. We dressed up, saw a Broadway musical, dined at a candlelit restaurant. That night, she looked at me and said, "It's not how many people show up that counts. It's who's willing to make you feel celebrated." That memory was etched in gold, but then I left for college, and everything shifted. Brooke stayed close to home at Northwestern. I moved to Boston University, an entire world away. "Why so far?" Dad asked coldly. "You trying to run from something?" The physical gap turned emotional faster than I expected. After graduation, I entered the tech world, built a reputation from scratch, and rose through the ranks. By my mid-30s, I was running operations at Vertex Technologies, managing hundreds of employees, overseeing massive budgets, flying internationally. Meanwhile, Brooke worked alongside Dad at the family insurance agency. Tyler flitted from job to job without much direction. My success sparked tension. During holidays, conversation turned awkward. "Still at that computer company?" Dad would ask, despite the holiday baskets I sent every year with the Vertex logo proudly displayed. "When are you going to settle down? Your mother wants grandkids." Never mind that Brooke wasn't married either. The real fracture came from Brooke. 3 Thanksgivings ago, in the kitchen after her 3rd glass of wine, she turned to me. "You think you're above us with your Boston office and your plane tickets?" she hissed, carving the pumpkin pie with unnecessary aggression. "You don't know what it's like taking care of Mom and Dad while you send fancy baskets. I call every week," I replied calmly. "I offered to fly you out," she cut me off. "You always make it a competition. You want praise for basic decency, coming from the family's golden child." That accusation felt cruel. I spent my entire life cheering from the sidelines, watching her get the spotlight. "I'm not competing," I said, steady but tired. "I just built something on my own." "That's not a crime." Her tone hardened. "You think just because you left and climbed the ladder, you're better than the rest of us. Let me break it to you, Mom doesn't even talk about your job. She doesn't get it. At least I'm here. At least I show up." That night, something cracked. After that holiday, Mom's calls grew shorter, less frequent. When we did speak, she seemed preoccupied, distant. The woman who once kept my science Fair certificate hidden in her nightstand. Now couldn't recall the name of the company I'd built my career in. Tyler drifted too. My goofy little brother, who once sent me memes and asked for career advice, now sent dry one-word texts. On my last trip home, he spent the entire dinner on his phone. Dad's disapproval solidified. Your mother worries, he told me flatly during one visit. All alone up there, working all the time. That's not a life, I try to explain. Friends, a dog, weekend hikes, a book club. But my family viewed fulfillment through their own lens. White picket fence, kids, Sundays at church. Without their version of normal, my achievements looked hollow. The hardest change came from Mom. She used to be my anchor, the one who celebrated small wins, the one who showed up when no one else did. Now she sounded like a stranger, with my sister whispering in her ear. Brooke says you're too busy for us, she told me in a low tone during our last real phone call. Is that true? It didn't matter how I replied. The judgment had already been cast. I was the absentee daughter, the career-obsessed outsider. The final blow came last Thanksgiving. After another snide jab from Brooke about my supposedly empty life, I put down my fork. At least I built mine, I said firmly. I didn't inherit a business and act like that makes me superior. Brooke's eyes flashed. You should go, she said, victorious. So I did. I grabbed my suitcase, called a car, and returned to Boston. Not a single call followed, not an apology, not a text. 3 months later, while sitting in my office during a late-night meeting prep, I absent-mindedly scrolled through Facebook. There it was, Brooke's post, a full gallery of Mom's 60th birthday celebration, champagne flutes, twinkling lights, matching dresses. Everyone was there, except me. Brooke had organized the event with the flair of a publicist planning a high-profile gala. The online invitation featured a sleek banner reading celebrating Patricia Williams' 60 remarkable years. As I skimmed the guest list, I recognized distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in a decade, neighborhood parents from our childhood street, even Mom's freshman year roommate who now retired in Florida. But my name? Absent. Nowhere in the attending or even interested tabs. Just gone like I never belonged. The glow from my computer screen lit up the dim office as the janitorial crew pushed vacuums across the carpet. It was nearly midnight, and I was still buried in end-of-quarter reports. The kind of grind that had built my career and drawn quiet resentment from my family. Dedication, discipline, and long hours were what kept me ahead, but at home, they were treated as detachment. Morgan? Rachel, my assistant, poked her head into the doorway. You're still here, security called, making sure you hadn't passed out or something. I clicked out of Facebook faster than a guilty teen. Just wrapping up a few things, I muttered. Trying to sound casual, she raised a brow. You do realize it's Friday night, right? Normal people are at happy hour, not auditing spreadsheets. I offered a half smile. I've never been normal. After she left, I reopened the tab and gave in to a habit I usually avoided. I looked through old family pictures. Mom's birthday last spring, which I missed due to a last-minute emergency in Tokyo. Tyler's job promotion at the bar, where I sent congratulatory flowers but didn't attend the party. Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner, all smiling faces arranged around a table I wasn't invited to. Their joy seemed untouched by my absence. I hovered over one particular image, Brooke standing beside Mom, both laughing, a birthday cake in the background. My stomach tightened. I picked up my phone and dialed home, heart racing despite myself. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice picked up. Morgan? Mom's voice cracked with surprise. Is everything all right? That was our dynamic now. Calls meant crises, not closeness. I'm okay, I replied, clearing my throat. I just saw something online about your birthday party. A pause, long enough to feel like hours. Oh, that, she finally said, sounding unsure. I noticed I didn't get an invitation. She hesitated again. Brooke said you were tied up with that expansion project Singapore, isn't it? That's not until next month, I replied, trying not to sound hurt. I'd make time for your 60th. Always, her voice softened. Of course you should be there. I'd love to see you. Even as she spoke, I sensed a strange distance in her tone, like she wasn't entirely sure if she meant it. After we hung up, I booked a seat on the next weekend's flight to Chicago first class, no less. It cost me $2,100, money I probably shouldn't have spent, but this wasn't just a trip. It was a mission. The next morning, I called Rachel. I need Friday off next week. Family situation, she sounded stunned. You? Taking personal time? You sure you're not sick? Funny. Just shuffle the vendor meetings, please. From there, it became a project in itself. I spent hours sourcing a gift that struck the right chord. I found an antique emerald brooch at a boutique near Cambridge nearly identical to one Mom used to admire in her grandmother's collection. I paired it with a top-tier spa day at that coastal resort she mentioned years ago. The total cost? Nearly $3,000. Excessive, maybe, but I wanted it known that even from afar, I remembered what mattered to her. Choosing an outfit was a strategic operation. I settled on a sapphire dress modest enough to appease Dad's conservative taste, yet sophisticated enough to reflect where I stood now. As I slid my card across the counter, I reminded myself, this isn't about approval, but deep down, I hoped it would be received as proof that I hadn't forgotten them, even if they seemed to have forgotten me. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror practicing small talk like I was prepping for a press conference. Great to see everyone. Smile. Not too wide. Yes, work's busy, but fulfilling. Deflect. Stay humble, Brooke. I'm sorry for how things ended. Last Thanksgiving, even if she struck first. It felt like rehearsing for the most important presentation of my adult life. In many ways, it was. On the morning of my flight, a message popped up from Brooke. Just one line. Heard you're coming. Don't make this weekend about you. I read it again during the Uber ride to Logan Airport, wondering what version of me she had built in her mind. I typed a single reply, looking forward to celebrating Mom, and hit send. The 3-hour flight gave me too much time to think. I flipped through client emails without absorbing a word, then tried the breathing techniques Dr. Lavini had taught me in therapy. Remember, she always said, you're not a child anymore. You're not walking back into that house as the girl trying to prove she's enough. You're walking in as the woman you've become. Still, logic didn't stand a chance against the gravitational pull of old family roles. Instead of returning to my childhood bedroom where dusty trophies and outdated posters still hung, I checked into a downtown hotel. A neutral zone. I needed distance, someplace to retreat if things spiraled. That evening, I dined alone in my suite. Room service brought grilled salmon and a glass of Pinot Noir while I laid out my clothes for the next day. The dress, the silver heels, the pearls Mom gave me after graduation, all selected to communicate success without arrogance, strength without alienation, independence without rejection. I barely slept. By dawn, my nerves felt frayed. As I applied foundation and curled my hair, I whispered to my reflection, "Happy birthday, Mom. I hope this matters." The venue was stunning. A restored lakefront boathouse with exposed beams and sweeping windows reflecting the soft shimmer of Lake Michigan. It was classic Mom charm without ostentation. I spotted familiar vehicles in the lot. Uncle Robert's flashy Corvette, Aunt Diana's no-nonsense SUV, my cousin Stephen's motorcycle, each license plate a reminder that everyone was here, everyone but me until now. All the familiar family vehicles felt like relics from childhood memories. As I neared the entrance, gripping the carefully chosen present, I noticed my dad's old college buddy, Thomas, standing outside, cigarette in hand. Morgan, his brows lifted in surprise. "Wow, it's been ages." "Hi, Mr. Polson," I responded, slipping into the polite formality ingrained in me. "Nice to see you again. You're the spitting image of your mom at this age," he remarked, offering an awkward half hug. "She'll be over the moon to see you. Just the other day, She mentioned how she wished all her kids could join her today. His words landed strangely. If Mom had said that, why would she act like my attendance wasn't expected? Before I could dig deeper, my cousin Eliza stepped out of the building. "Morgan," she exclaimed, visibly surprised. She hugged me quickly, her expression shifting to slight confusion. "I didn't know you were coming. Brooke told us you had work and couldn't make it." I shuffled things around, I said lightly, though a unease was creeping in. "Wouldn't miss Mom's milestone celebration." Eliza gave a tight smile. "Sure, everyone's inside. Your mom looks amazing." Inside the doorway stood my father, firm as ever, his gray hair neatly trimmed, posture rigid from years of military service. As I approached, his expression turned to stone. "Morgan," he said flatly, "why are you here?" The question caught me off guard. My practice greeting disappeared instantly. "I came to celebrate Mom," I replied, forcing my tone to stay light. "Is that shocking?" He glanced down at a clipboard and ran his finger down a list. "You're not on the guest list," he said. Those words struck like a slap. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, conscious of the glances directed toward us. "There has to be some confusion," I murmured. "I talked to Mom. She told me to come." He didn't flinch. "There's no error. This gathering was organized by people actually present in your mother's world." The harshness in his voice was unmistakable. People nearby feigned disinterest, though their ears were clearly tuned in. "Dad," I said, my voice low, steadying myself. "Please don't do this now. I flew across the country for this. I just want to see her and say happy birthday." "You should have called first," he replied. "This event is for those who show up consistently." Just then, Brooke arrived, Jessie following closely. She wore a pale pink dress, eerily similar to one of Mom's favorites. Her hair curled softly, just like Mom preferred. It wasn't subtle, this was performative. "Something wrong?" she asked, Fox concern painted across her face, though satisfaction flickered in her gaze. "Morgan's not listed," Dad repeated. Brooke feigned surprise. "Oh no. I assumed we'd settled this already." "Morgan, we haven't settled anything," I replied, trying not to break. "Mom said I could attend. Probably didn't want conflict," she said with a shrug. "You know how much she avoids drama." "Where is she?" I asked, trying to glimpse the crowd inside. "I'd like to talk to her directly." "She's busy with the people who made time for her," Dad said. "I won't let you cause distress on her special day." I noticed Jesse shifting uneasily. Tall, conventionally attractive, he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. His eyes were downcast, avoiding mine. This was the first time I'd seen him in person, only knowing him from pictures Brooke uploaded. As I stood there awkwardly, someone behind me whispered, "Isn't that Morgan?" Another voice replied, "I thought she cut ties with the family." Then a third, quieter but biting, Brooke mentioned she accused Patricia of being a bad mother last Thanksgiving. And Brooke, no longer pretending discretion, said clearly, why would she think she'd be welcome after what she pulled? It all became unmistakably clear. This wasn't spontaneous. It had been orchestrated. Not just exclusion but punishment. I inhaled slowly, squaring my shoulders. I wouldn't give them the reaction they wanted. "I understand," I said, my tone composed. "Please give this to Mom." I handed over the elegant package. My father accepted it without acknowledgement. "Tell her I love her and wish her joy today," I added, locking eyes with him. "That's all I came for." Without waiting for a reply, I turned around and walked away, each step deliberate. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. Behind me, Brooke let out a faint laugh, and my father muttered something I didn't catch. The rental car. My hands trembled so badly I struggled to fit the key into the ignition. I gripped the steering wheel, fighting back the tears threatening to spill. Inhale to 3-4. Exhale to 3-4. I would not collapse here. I'd drive to the hotel, pack, change my return flight, and erase this attempt from memory. I was seconds from starting the car when a sudden knock startled me. Jessie stood outside the window, gesturing hesitantly. His face reflected hesitation, maybe regret. For a brief moment, I debated driving away, but curiosity won. I rolled the window down halfway. "Morgan," he began, clearing his throat. "Miss Williams, just Morgan," I said automatically, then narrowed my eyes. "Wait, how did you know to call me Miss Williams?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. Jesse looked over his shoulder toward the party, then returned his gaze to mine. "Because I work at Vertex Technologies, the Boston office, third floor software division." My thoughts scrambled, sifting through department rosters. Jesse Lawson, he added quickly. "Transferred from the Chicago branch 8 months ago. I moved to be closer to Brooke on weekends." I blinked in disbelief. The irony landed like a punch. Of all the tech firms in the city, Brooke's boyfriend had ended up at mine. I had been so immersed in upper management and expansion planning that I hadn't noticed the addition. "She doesn't know you work under me, does she?" I asked, suspicion rising. He hesitated. "She knows I'm at Vertex, but I never clarified that you're technically part of my leadership line." I let that hang for a moment. "Not directly reporting," I muttered, "but definitely in the chain." Jesse nodded sheepishly. "May I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the passenger seat. Reluctantly, I reached over and unlocked the door. He climbed in, folding himself into the rental's limited space. "I should have stepped in," he said, rubbing his palms together. "What they did, it wasn't right." "Then why didn't you?" I asked, the sting still fresh. He exhaled. "Family ties." They're knotted. "I'm still learning where the landmines are." "Well," I said dryly, "you've just witnessed a full detonation. That's actually why I followed you." "Out here." He shifted toward me, voice low. "That scene back there? It was planned." My gut clenched. "What are you saying?" "Last night," he began, "at the rehearsal dinner, Brooke and your dad were discussing contingency plans. What to do if you showed up. Your father said he'd handle it. Your mother wasn't even there." My heart dropped. The cruelty hadn't been spontaneous. It was orchestrated. "She didn't know I was coming?" I asked quietly. "She asked about you earlier," Jesse said gently. "Wondered if maybe you'd surprise her." "Brooke told her you declined weeks ago." "That's a lie," I whispered, voice cracking. "I know," he replied. "I've heard enough over the last year to piece it together. Brooke talks about you a lot. I'm sure it's glowing." I scoffed. Jessie didn't flinch. "She measures herself against you constantly, though she pretends otherwise. You're the benchmark she can't admit exists." My breath caught. "Jealousy? Of me?" He nodded. "You left. You succeeded. You didn't rely on anyone. That scares them. Especially your dad." I sat stunned. I had always felt like an outsider, but I never realized Brooke resented me for escaping the orbit she'd never left. "At the company," Jesse continued, "you're known. People admire your leadership, your focus." When I realized Brooke's sister was the same Morgan Williams that everyone at work respects, he trailed off, clearly trying to reconcile two vastly different images. The silence stretched as I processed everything. While I was drowning in guilt over perceived abandonment, they were rewriting the story in my absence. And Mom had been left in the dark. She believed Brooke? I asked, my voice small. "Your mom hasn't been well," Jesse said gently. "Not seriously ill, but she's been dealing with memory lapses, low moods. Brooke's been managing her schedule, her meds, her conversations, manipulation masked as caretaking." It all made sense now. My mother hadn't withdrawn, she'd been isolated. "So," I said, voice barely above a whisper, "you're telling me the last few years were an illusion? That I've been cast as the villain in a story I never auditioned for?" Jesse looked down. "It's wrong. That's why I'm here. Because you deserve to know. And because I've seen the difference, how you lead with integrity. That doesn't match the portrait they've painted." I stared at the lake beyond the windshield, glittering beneath the late morning sun. Returning to Boston, washing my hands of them all, would be the easier path. Clean, final, but that 7-year-old inside me clutching paper party hats made by a mother who once saw her still wanted closure. "I can't leave it like this," I said. She deserves to know the truth. Jesse's shoulders relaxed slightly. Whatever you choose, I've got your back. But just go easy. I still have to attend Christmas dinners. I cracked a smile. Don't worry, I've handled tougher boardrooms than this. We climbed out together. As we walked back toward the boathouse, I wasn't trembling anymore. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the truth that had been buried beneath years of curated lies, and I was ready. True courage isn't just for boardrooms or high-stakes negotiations. It's required most when standing face to face with the people who raised you and still try to define your worth. Jesse and I slipped in through a side entrance, avoiding my father's gatekeeping at the main door. The party was in full motion, guests clustered around linen-covered tables, clinking glasses, laughter rising in bursts. A looping slideshow displayed decades of family snapshots, carefully curated to feature everyone except me. My absence was as deliberate as the floral centerpieces on every table. The heart of the room sat my mother, radiant in lavender. The soft color highlighted her silver waves, and she beamed as Uncle Robert cracked another of his predictable jokes. Watching her, unaware of the ambush outside, twisted something in my chest. Brooke saw us first. Her reaction was instant, eyes narrowing, calculating, then scanning quickly between Jesse and me. She started weaving through the crowd, urgency in her step, but Jesse beat her to the punch. Everyone, Jesse's voice cut through the din, halting conversations mid-sentence. I'd like you to meet Morgan Williams, daughter of our guest of honor, and my boss at Vertex Technologies. Silence spread like ripples on still water. My mother looked up, startled at first, then her face broke into a look I hadn't seen in years. Genuine joy. Morgan, she said, rising from her chair as her napkin fluttered to the ground. You came before I could say a word. Brooke arrived, tension radiating off her like static. Jesse, what do you think you're doing? She hissed. The right thing, he replied without flinching. Then came my father, jaw tight. I thought I was clear at the door. You were, I answered, steady. But it looks like there's a lot of confusion about where I stand in this family. Let's clarify that. Mom moved closer, her expression shifting from elation to concern. Robert, why are you angry? Morgan being here is wonderful. She wasn't invited, he muttered, sidestepping her question. I turned to my mother gently. Did you honestly think I chose not to be here for your 60th birthday? She looked confused. Well, Brooke said you were too tied up with work. The Singapore expansion? That's not true. I called you. I told you I'd come. A hush fell over the room again as realization flickered in her eyes. But, Robert said, I was at the door, I continued, my voice calm but clear. He told me I wasn't welcome, that only those who prioritize family deserved a place here. Mom turned to him, stunned. Robert, tell me that's not accurate. We agreed after Thanksgiving. No, she snapped. You decided. I never agreed to that. The crowd was now fully invested, silence broken only by the occasional glass clink or whispered aside. For years, I began, meeting her gaze. My actions have been twisted. Work travel was painted as indifference. Choices reframed as betrayal. And I think it's time that stopped. This isn't the time. Brooke cut in, voice syrupy sweet with practiced outrage. You're making everything about yourself again. That's the pattern, I said, gesturing in her direction. Labeling me selfish, cold. That narrative's been rehearsed so often it's become truth, except it's fiction. Turning to the room, I spoke clearly. Many of you have known me since braces and science fairs. I moved to Boston, not the moon. Phones go both ways. So do holidays. Across the crowd, subtle nods and murmurs began to stir validation. Finally, addressing Brooke directly, I shifted tone. You've been reshaping the story, feeding Mom half-truths, recasting my life as a rejection of everything here. That's ridiculous, she scoffed, though her voice trembled. I didn't have to respond. Jesse, I asked, what did Brooke tell you before you met me today? He hesitated, then chose honesty. That you were cold, obsessed with career. That you once said your mother didn't support you. I never said that, I replied. She implied it, Brooke countered. No, I said, calmly. At Thanksgiving, when you accused me of thinking I was better than everyone else, I reminded you I worked hard to build my life. That wasn't an insult, it was my truth. Mom's face crumpled. Brooke, have you been pushing us away from Morgan? Brooke's mask finally broke. You don't understand. She left. She got to go off and build this glamorous life, while I stayed behind doing the hard work. And what do I get? You still light up when she calls. Despite everything, something in me softened. We were both trapped. She in obligation, me in distance. Mom stepped closer. Brooke, I've never compared you. I love you both uniquely, deeply. Then why do you still have her third-place science fair certificate in your drawer? Brooke's voice cracked. That certificate had become a symbol of something I never realized. She saw Mom's quiet affection for me. Dad finally intervened. This isn't the place, it is, Mom said, still lacing her tone. I'm done with secrets. Everyone, please enjoy the food. I need a private word with my children. She led us to a side room. Jessie followed reluctantly, caught between worlds. As the door closed behind us, I heard the soft buzz of gossip sparking behind us. But this moment, this reckoning was long overdue. We obeyed, silent and subdued, like adolescents caught misbehaving. Turning first to my father, Mom's voice was steady but carried unmistakable steel. Robert, she said, did you refuse Morgan entry to my celebration? He shifted uneasily in his seat. I was protecting you. After what she said about us, what did she say? Mom's tone remained calm, yet the command behind it was unmistakable. Not second-hand versions. Her exact words, caught off guard, he blinked. She claimed we stifled her growth, that everything she's achieved came without any help from this family. That's not accurate, I interjected quietly. I said I carved my own path. It wasn't criticism, just truth. Brooke had just accused me of having nothing worth celebrating. Mom turned to my sister, eyes narrowing. Brooke, have you intentionally placed barriers between Morgan and me? Brooke's fautive poise cracked under the intensity of our mother's gaze. I didn't mean to shut her out. I got tired of being invisible. She shows up once a year and everyone treats her like royalty. I'm the one handling everything, appointments, errands, checking prescriptions. Then she FLIs in and it's like I don't exist. I turned to Mom, stunned. Wait, what appointments? A sigh escaped her. I've had a few issues, some forgetfulness, low moods. Nothing urgent, but still difficult. Brooks helped a lot. You never told me, I murmured, throat tightening. She thought it might distract you with your schedule, Mom admitted, brows furrowing. But that wasn't her call to make. Everything was sliding into place now, the disconnection, the fragmented phone conversations, the feeling of being edged out. I owe you both an apology. Jessie's voice emerged from the tension. I witnessed to many conversations where Morgan's words were twisted or situations misrepresented. I should have stepped in earlier. Brooke's expression crumbled. You're siding with her? I'm not choosing between people, he said evenly. I'm standing with honesty. That word echoed through the room. Honesty. Something we hadn't practiced in years. We clung to narratives, let silence shape our beliefs, and forgot how to confront hurt without weaponizing it. I want to fix this, I said into the quiet, but only if we start fresh. No intermediaries, no filtered messages, just openness. Mom reached for my hand, squeezing gently. That's what I want too. I've missed you more than I could ever express. Dad cleared his throat, eyes on the floor. Maybe I misunderstood some things. If what you're saying holds up. Not quite remorse, but as close as he'd ever get. Brooke said nothing. Her tears spoke louder than any outburst. The role she'd curated, so meticulously dutiful daughter, misunderstood sibling, was unraveling. I couldn't tell if she mourned its collapse or felt relieved to be unburdened. This won't be fixed in a single moment, I admitted. But every change has to begin somewhere. Mom paused before we returned to the larger crowd. That gift you brought, the brooch. How did you know? When I was 10, You let me explore Grandma's old jewelry box. You pointed to one with green stones and said it reminded you of your childhood. It was lost during the move, remember? Her eyes shimmered. You remembered? Every meaningful thing, I replied. Even from far away, I've never stopped being part of your world. We walked back into the main hall, and something felt lighter. The air wasn't free of tension, but it was breathable again. Truth, even when uncomfortable, doesn't crush it. Clear space. Relatives began approaching, not just with polite remarks, but with real engagement. Even Dad made an effort, asking about my projects with actual curiosity. Brooke kept her distance, adrift in introspection. This confrontation hadn't just exposed her actions, it revealed the wound beneath them. As Mom sliced her birthday cake, with me on one side and Brooke on the other, our mirrored reflections in her smile gave me something I didn't expect, not closure, but hope. When I flew back to Boston on Monday, I carried emotional exhaustion heavier than any suitcase. The previous weekend had unraveled years of buried tension. I'd extended my visit, shared quiet walks with Mom, managed measured conversations with Dad, and left Brooke the solitude she seemed to crave. Rachel glanced up as I entered the office, coffee in one hand, laptop in the other. Survive the reunion? She asked, half teasing. Barely, I answered. But something shifted, and did they finally recognize the powerhouse they raised? She grinned. I paused. I think they're beginning to, by midday. Reality reasserted itself. An email from HR pinged into my inbox, confirmation of Jesse Lawson's departmental transfer. He was moving out of software engineering and into product development. Still at Vertex, but no longer within my chain of command. Smart, ethical, messy, I called him. You didn't need to switch departments, I said when he picked up. It felt appropriate, Jesse responded. Clearer lines, fewer complications. How's Brooke handling everything? His breath caught audibly. She's having a hard time, Jesse admitted. The confrontation cracked the foundation she's been living on. She gave me an ultimatum. Saturday night, my chest tightened. Me or Vertex? Pretty much, he confirmed. She said if I really cared about her, I'd resign. The tactic was so familiar it almost made me laugh. And your response? I told her I care about myself enough not to let someone else dictate my career. His tone was calm, but resolute. We're taking space right now while she sorts through everything. Guilt prickled. I never meant to wedge myself between you two. You didn't, Jesse replied gently. This was inevitable. I've been noticing how she handles disagreements. What happened at the party just pushed the timeline. After we hung up, I stared out at the Boston skyline from my office window. Personal and professional worlds had collided in ways no leadership seminar could have prepared me for. By noon, I scheduled time with our chief ethics officer to report the entanglement. I need to ensure this doesn't compromise my objectivity, I said plainly during our meeting. Diane listened thoughtfully before replying. Document every decision. Step back from any oversight involving Jesse. And it might be wise to work with an executive coach. This goes beyond policy. Her advice was practical, exactly the structure I needed. I followed her guidance, transferred Jesse to a separate reporting line, logged our interactions, and began sessions with a leadership advisor to navigate the emotional layers. Strangely, formal protocols helped me cope. Privately, I wrestled with my own reactions. The emotional aftershocks from the birthday weren't fading. I booked an emergency session with Dr. Lavini. You finally advocated for yourself, she said after I recounted the events. It was terrifying, I admitted, but freeing. The dynamics you've described are textbook, she continued. There's the child who leaves and the one who stays. Often, the good one becomes resentful, and the selfish one ends up carrying invisible wounds. How do we heal this? There's no magic fix, she replied. Just a commitment to honesty and accepting what each person is capable of. Not everyone can or will change. 2 weeks after the party, Mom called with unsettling news. Her physician confirmed early-stage cognitive decline. Not severe, but noticeable lapses that would likely increase. I should have said something earlier, she whispered. Brooke thought it would worry you. I exhaled slowly. Mom, from now on, I need you to tell me directly. No more filters, no more intermediaries. A pause, then a firmer voice. You're right, I promise. Actually, I've been thinking, would it be okay if I visited you in Boston? Her request caught me off guard. Not once in the 15 years since I'd moved had either parent visited. You want to come alone? Well, she laughed softly. Your father has a fishing trip. I thought this might be a good time. The idea warmed a part of me I didn't realize had gone cold. Yes, send me your dates, and I'll book the flights tonight. At work, I dove into the Singapore project with fresh clarity. The emotional purge of the past few weeks made me bolder. I challenged inefficiencies, advocated harder for my team, and navigated stakeholder meetings with sharper instincts. You're operating differently, Alan, my department head noted during a review. Clearer, stronger, I offered a small smile. I'm finally showing up as my whole self. The Jessie situation remained fragile. At work, we were strictly professional. On weekends, we occasionally met for coffee, conversations quietly. Orbiting the family chaos, she's seeing a therapist, he said during one of those talks. Your mom insisted. That small detail gave me more hope than anything else. For Brooke to seek help on her own meant something was shifting. 3 months after the party, an unexpected email arrived. The CEO wanted to meet about a potential promotion, vice president of global operations. The role would increase my responsibilities tenfold. It also came with travel, pressure, and scrutiny. During the interview, Stephanie Davis leaned forward. This position requires poise, clarity, and courage under fire. Can you describe a moment outside the workplace where you demonstrated those qualities? I paused, then shared a version of the birthday incident stripped of names, focused on the value of truth and boundary setting in emotionally volatile environments. When I finished, she nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly what sets you apart, Morgan. Your competence is obvious, but your strength of character, that's what makes you a leader. A week later, I signed the offer letter. The first person I called was Mom. I'm so proud of you, she said, voice steady and present. I always knew you were meant for important things, even when I only managed third place in science fairs. I teased, especially then, she replied, because you did it your way. That always mattered more to me than the ribbon. As we ended the call, I realized something had finally shifted. For the first time in years, I felt anchored in my job, in my choices, and in my family. 3 months after the confrontation, my mother stepped off a flight at Logan International. Her first visit to my life in Boston. I waited near the gate, feeling oddly nervous. Morgan, she called, eyes scanning the crowd. She looked smaller than I remembered, but her gaze was sharp, her smile warm. Welcome, I said, pulling her into a hug. I still can't believe you're here. What followed was a week I'll never forget. Taking a break from work for 3 full days was unheard of for me. Rachel, my assistant, even joked about checking my temperature. But I wanted my mother to see every aspect of the life I'd built, from my apartment overlooking the Charles River to the cozy cafe where the baristas knew my name, and the hidden courtyard at the public library where I often escaped with a book. Each stop was a glimpse into a world she'd never visited. It's lovely, she said one afternoon as we strolled along the harbor walk. Now I understand why you love it here. On her third day, I brought her to the Vertex headquarters, observing her beam with pride as my colleagues shared stories about my contributions was more healing than I expected. She saw me not as the estranged daughter but as a respected leader in my field. Jessie greeted us with the professionalism we'd agreed on, maintaining appropriate distance, though I noticed how warmly he spoke to her. Regardless of his situation with Brooke, he'd become an unexpected part of this unfolding reconciliation. When Mom returned to Chicago, something had shifted. Our weekly conversations became deeper, more candid. She began mailing me small, thoughtful items, a paperback she thought I'd enjoy, a scarf that complemented my eyes, keepsakes that communicated "I notice you." In her own quiet way, she was reconnecting. Even Dad began reaching out. His version of effort came in the form of emailed tech articles, occasionally accompanied by dry commentary like, "Might be useful." For a man of few words, those notes were meaningful. The most complicated connection remained Brooke. For 2 months following the confrontation, silence hung between us. Then one evening, as I finalized slides for an upcoming strategy meeting, her name appeared on my screen. "I've been reflecting," she said abruptly. "And doing a lot of therapy." "That's good," I responded carefully. "I'm not ready to unpack everything yet," she continued, "but I want to admit I was unfair. I misrepresented you to Mom and Dad." It wasn't a full apology, but from Brooke, it mattered. "Thank you," I said simply. "Jesse mentioned how professional you've been about all of it," she added. "He respects you. He's a solid person," I replied. "Whatever happens with you two, I know he cares. We're working through things," she said vaguely. "Anyway, I just wanted you to know I'm trying." As I stepped into my new role as vice president, the job brought new challenges and wider scope. My responsibilities increased, and with that came frequent travel. Ironically, I began passing through Chicago more often, as O'Hare became a regular hub on my way to Asia for the Singapore expansion. Those layovers evolved into brief reunions, sometimes dinner with Mom at the terminal, sometimes an overnight stay that included Dad. These brief, intentional moments became more genuine than the strained holidays we once endured. "Less stress has made a huge difference," Mom shared during one of our chats. "The tension was affecting my health more than I realized." 6 months after that unforgettable birthday, I hosted Thanksgiving in Boston. Not just a meal, but a reclamation. Mom and Dad accepted the invitation without hesitation. Tyler came, his new partner in tow. Brooke declined but surprised me by sending a beautifully curated gift basket. As everyone gathered around my dining room table, now expanded with a rented extension, I realized something profound. This was the first holiday where no one was pretending. We weren't falling into childhood roles. We were adults, connecting by choice rather than obligation. Before we ate, Mom stood up and lifted her glass. "Thank you, Morgan, not only for this beautiful evening, but for helping us rediscover each other. Your courage changed more than you know." Dad cleared his throat. "I've been reevaluating what kind of father I've been, and who I want to be now. I'm proud of you, not just for your career but for who you are." That simple, honest recognition brought tears to my eyes. After we'd finished eating, and everyone helped clean up, a first for our family, I received a message from Brooke. "Hope dinner went well. Maybe next year." Those few words carried more promise than 100 posed family portraits. The ripple effects of this transformation extended into my professional world. My leadership evolved more grounded, more empathetic. I began mentoring junior women at Vertex, especially those navigating difficult family expectations. "To find your value, look inward," I told one particularly bright analyst, struggling under pressure to meet parental ideals. "Not to your job title or your relatives' approval, but to how authentically you live and treat others." In my next review, Stephanie, our CEO, said, "Your technical brilliance has always been clear, but now you're leading with presence and compassion. That's rare." The event I'd feared would destroy what little connection I had with my family had sparked something better. Not perfection, we were still clumsy, sometimes falling into old habits. But we were doing the work consciously now, calling out dysfunction and extending grace. During her visit to Boston, my mother said something that stayed with me. "Sometimes exclusion is the universe's invitation to find where you truly belong." She meant my career, but the insight applied to relationships too. Being turned away at that party led me toward connection that was real, not performative. The emerald brooch I'd given her became her favorite piece, worn at every milestone since. A quiet emblem of remembrance, a token that said, "Even when I'm away, I'm still part of this family." This spring, We're starting family therapy, mom, dad, Brooke, Tyler, and me. Not because things are broken again, but because we want to keep building. It's happening in Chicago next month. My flight's already booked. Family isn't a fixed destination, it's an evolving path. The effort never ends. But I've learned boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges built with clarity and care. Have you ever had to stand your ground against people who misunderstood you? How did you manage that experience? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, consider liking the video and subscribing for more narratives about navigating relationships and reclaiming your truth. Thank you for walking with me through this chapter. And remember, sometimes healing starts the moment you choose to speak, even if your voice trembles.